hell is this one? Opening credits sequence of an ocean. Ooh, the ghost of Mrs. Muir! From here to eternity! Oh. I was totally about to guess that, I swear. The 1948 film noir, The Amazing Mr. X, was produced by Eagle Lion Films and stars Lynn Barry, Kathy O'Donnell, Richard Carlson, and the man known as the Turkish Delight, Turhan Bey. It was directed by Bernard Vorhaus, most famous for directing this. Christine steps out onto her balcony and stares at the ocean, the wind whipping through her brown hair. Or not anymore. Oh no, look out!
My Chris.
Whew, that was close. Silly movie. Janet, the younger sister, brings Christine inside. Christine tells Janet that she thought she heard a man's voice calling her name, and it sounded like her late husband Paul, whose face just suddenly appears when you turn a light on. She reminisces about late night swims in the ocean.
If any husband of mine ever chased me into the ocean in the middle of the night, I'd shoot him.
She said matter-of-factly. That could be why you're not married. You sound a little trigger-happy.
Don't wear your wedding ring tonight, Edith.
Why not?
It might make it awkward for Martin.
Is Martin going to propose again tonight?
She said flippantly.
You will say yes tonight, won't you?
I suppose I better.
She said randomly. Turns out Janet can't remember the name of the man she's going out with that night. He's probably not going to tell you because he doesn't want you tracking him down and shooting him. Christine walks down the beach towards Martin's place when she hears a voice on the beach calling her name again. Dear God, your husband does not sound healthy at all. Oh, right, he's dead. I guess that's the ultimate not healthy. Frightened, Christine begins running and comes across a tree with a bird laughing at her. In her effort to get away, she runs into this guy, whom she should be grateful for because if he wasn't there, she would run straight into the big old rock. He turns out to be a psychic named Alexis, and the bird is his. I guess birds need to be taken for walks too. He reveals that he knows some of Martin's idiosyncrasies, then disappears as Martin comes along down the beach. They hang out at her house because she tore her dress while running and she needs to change. Martin puts on a song that startles Christine because she claims they don't have that record.
That was Paul's favorite prelude. I've heard him play it 100 times right here in this room.
Well, moving on, I guess.
I can see I'll just have to propose to you.
Oh, Martin, I talked you into it.
You sure did.
Ladies and gentlemen, forcing a proposal 101. That night, Christine leaves her engagement ring on the nightstand, and a man's voice talks to her while she is sleeping.
It's Paul. Can't you hear the ocean calling?
Glad he recovered from whatever that was he had earlier. Christine closes the door, but they blow open again, and Martin's oh-so-flattering portrait is knocked onto the floor. After locking the doors closed, Christine discovers that the orchid from Martin spontaneously died, her engagement ring has turned into a man's wedding ring, and the picture of Martin has turned into a picture of Paul. Then Paul's ghost dresses in drag and chases Christine across the room? Good thing Janet was already sitting up.
What's so unusual about a window blowing open?
Well, maybe nothing, but still kind of irritating. Christine tells Janet about all the things that changed in the room and now sees that they're actually back to normal. The orchid is alive, her engagement ring is back, and so is the portrait of Martin.
You see? Just a bad dream.
Yes, that picture would give one bad dreams. Janet tries explaining away everything that happened, but Christine insists it was real. This drives her to go see Alexis the next day. I'm assuming he's the amazing Mr. X from the title, which makes no sense unless we find out later his name is Alexis X. Christine walks in through spontaneously opening doors until she reaches Alexis, who agrees to help her. Some weeks later, Janet and Martin spy on Christine as she goes to Alexis's house. They decide to hire a detective who seems more concerned about showing off his magic trick abilities than helping them with their case. You have no idea where those cards have been. They decide to send Janet to the psychic's house disguised as a client. Right, because if he's a phony and researched Christine, there's no way in hell he'd know about her sister. She pretends to be Mrs. Charles Harper, wondering if her husband loves her, but Alexis watches through a two-way glass as Janet polishes a cigarette case on which she is obviously going to try to get his fingerprints. He also gets a carbon copy of the note she had written before, tells her exactly why she is there, and then convinces her he is real. Excuse you? He admits he's been in prison before.
I think you may be able to understand this.
Because you seem like you'll be in prison someday. Despite him deliberately putting his fingerprints on the cigarette case.
But I erased them. Oh, Martin, he isn't at all the kind of a man we thought he was.
Silly women. It turns out Alexis has a spy in Christine's house disguised as a maid. Janet tries to convince Christine to not see Alexis ever again, and admits that Alexis told her she is more mature than Christine, despite her being the younger sister. Naturally, Christine is not cool with this. We get a randomly quick shot of someone watching Christine's house that is obviously not Alexis. Both women wind up at Alexis's house.
I feel a disturbance.
In the Force.
If we are to reach the outer world tonight, we must leave behind us all thoughts that are hostile.
He decides to have a seance with the two women, so he has Janet tie him up, then lock him in a cabinet. Right. I don't think I've ever heard of an S&M seance. During the seance, random images flash through the air.
Here's Janet. It's dead.
Turns out we had two of them. Alexis has a trick for getting out of the cabinet so he can stage the spooky manifestations. Martin and the detective are outside deciding to bust in on the seance, and it really looks like they're holding hands right here. Martin has some explaining to do to Christine.
Explain that if you can.
Ah, shut up, Ricky. They try to catch Alexis outside of the cabinet, but he sneaks back in before they can get the door unlocked.
Sometimes a prison record is something to be proud of.
It is? Okay, I guess that's a matter of opinion. Martin reveals to Christine that he thinks Paul only married her for her money anyway, so even if Alexis was conjuring up Paul, he should let him stay dead. Martin and the detective insist on joining the seance.
And have you report me for conducting a seance?
To who? Jesus? Alexis sits down with them to continue the seance, and Paul begins speaking to Christine.
Christine.
When the medium of your seance looks really confused, you might want to start worrying. After everyone leaves, Alexis finds out that Paul is actually alive. Cyanide.
Excellent.
Paul proposes a partnership.
You see, I need money.
Then you shouldn't have made your wealthy wife your widow, dumbass. The burned body they found in the car they presumed to be Paul turned out to be Paul's previous wife. Paul blackmails Alexis into helping him continue the con with the sisters and tells Alexis to marry Janet, while Paul says he'll
take care of Christine.
Ominous. Christine is having trouble sleeping because Paul keeps haunting her. I could see how that would be annoying. The maid and Alexis make Christine drink a glass of hot milk to help her relax. That was a thing they did in old movies to make people relax, and look where all those people are. Dead. Don't drink hot milk, people. It sounds so gross. Janet and Alexis go for a walk down the beach and suddenly are in love. That was a thing they did in old movies when they just wanted to move the plot along faster, and look where all those people are now. Dead. Don't fall in love too quickly, people. It's annoying. Christine wakes up from sleeping on the couch to see Paul playing the piano. I wish I looked that put together when I first woke up. Then again, I clearly don't look that put together when I've been awake for several hours, so never mind. Christine follows Paul over the rocks, but seems to have trouble focusing. See, people, that's what hot milk does to you. It makes you loopy. Actually, you probably have to be loopy to drink it in the first place. Don't drink hot milk. Christine slips and falls on the rocks. Alexis and Janet hear her scream, so Janet climbs up to save Christine. Alexis follows to save Janet.
Alexis, she's not badly hurt. She's all right.
I think she's all right.
I think she could use an actual medical opinion outside the quick glance over from a fake psychic. Martin tries to see Christine. Alexis tries to stop him, but Janet tells Martin that Christine is in bed because of the fall she had the night before. Meanwhile, Paul's voice is telling Christine they will be together always. This is some altered state-sponsored programming going on here. Martin doesn't want Christine left alone.
But I'm with her all the time.
Except right this second, obviously. Martin tells Christine to go to the hospital to get rest. Christine doesn't want to be separated from Paul's spirit. Paul is mad that Alexis didn't let him kill Christine the night before. Yeah, Alexis, you and your damn morals. Paul begins piping music and his voice into the room again, only this time Janet's there to hear it. She also hears the record skipping on the music. After a not very intense investigation, she finds a speaker in the fireplace and Alexis and Paul in the basement. Paul goes to kill Janet, but Alexis fights him while Janet runs upstairs to call Martin. The police might have made more sense, but okay. She only gets a few words out before Paul shoots Alexis and cuts the phone line. Janet tries to get Christine out of the house and they run into Paul, who is about to shoot them, but Alexis blows the electricity so he can't see.
You forgot, Paul. My profession is raising the dead.
Apparently, they had battery-powered speakers in 1948. Paul tries to find Alexis in the dark house and shoots wildly around until the police pull up. As Alexis lays on the couch dying, he releases his bird.
Fly away, my friend. I won't need you anymore.
It's about time, jeez, that guy. The alternate title for this film was The Spiritualist, which actually makes more sense as there is a spiritualist in it and not an amazing person named Mr. X. The director, Bernard Vorhaus, has been recognized as influencing modern filmmakers. British documentary maker Kevin Brownlow called Vorhaus highly inventive, with a real love for film and as clever as a wagon load of monkeys. I can't say I've ever met a wagon load of monkeys. I'll take your word for it then. Vorhaus is specifically recognized for his work on this particular film, as was John Alton for his cinematography and Alexander Laszlo for his musical score. On the other hand, it's said that audiences were laughing at unintentionally funny scenes when this film was first released. Is that why this film's in the dumpster? Possibly. Probably not, though. There actually appear to be several reasons that it might be there. First of all, this film is a victim of public domain. It was produced by Eagle Lion Films, which went defunct 2 years later and was taken over by United Artists. United Artists was kind of an acquisition whore, so they probably only concerned themselves with films they were currently making money on, and it sounds like this was an easily overlooked film. And thus, The Amazing Mr. X fell into public domain, meaning there is no incentive to promote it. But it also means that it's an easy, cheap product for distributors to make and sell. However, a lot of the ones you find today are actually copies of copies, so the quality is very severely degraded. And you know how kids are today with their good quality film and realistic special effects and not changing the title randomly for no particular reason. It's not a great film by any means, but it's not a bad film either. It lacks in some areas, it's true, especially by today's standards, such as the special effects and nowadays not particularly original plot twists. The problem today is that we judge all movies throughout history by current standards, when the technology for filmmakers to create effects like today simply did not always exist. We need to learn to appreciate the older films for the stories themselves and the craft of the various aspects of the film, especially the ones that are no longer used today. Maybe that was innovative at the time what they did, or maybe what we have today is because of what they did then. And not expect it to be perfectly realistic, or judge it because a more modern movie had the same plot device and you watched them in the wrong order. Not to mention, Turhan Bey is not entirely awful to look at for an entire film. So, yeah, check out this film. Why the hell not? Turhan Bey.